This is Dave with Taboo Customs. Today I figured I'd do a little video on how to remove broken bolts that broke off due to typically rust or other issues where you're breaking a bolt off, often in a frame. Now we've got our green XJ project behind us where we're doing some 1-ton axle swaps and suspension work. And of course, a lot of times when you're working on the rear of these Cherokees, the shackle bolt that's up inside the unibody will break. Unfortunately, we did have one of those break on the driver's side here, or excuse me, the passenger side. The driver's side came out clean, which is good. So what we're going to do is we're going to extract that bolt. First, I'll tell you how we're going to do that. What we're going to use is we're going to use a washer. Actually, in this case, we ended up using a couple washers because we have actually kind of backwards. You're shooting an intro after we actually pulled the bolt, just to make sure that everything worked out, because sometimes this process doesn't exactly work how you want it, but it is the best method we found. So this is actually what we just pulled out of that Cherokee there, and what we did here is we have the broken piece that's inside the unibody. We started with a fender washer, and we did that because it's large and it has a smaller hole typically, and we put that over the bolt and we welded it to it. And the reason we started with a fender washer is that this bolt was pretty much flush to the frame and we couldn't get a washer really over it. It'd be better if we had a washer over it and we could fillet weld around it, but no, we had to put it over it to get it centered and plug weld it. So we did that. We put it over there, we got it centered, we plug welded it, and we got it to start to loosen up. And when we did, you'll see that we went back and forth with it, and we got it to where it stuck out about a 1/16 to an 1/8. So it gave us a little bit more leeway, because what we're trying to make sure we don't do with this is we don't want to weld into the material around the bolt. So once we welded our washer on here, we obviously went in and we welded a nut over top of it, so we had something to grab onto. Now, like I said, we had to do it twice. We were able to use a little bit bigger washer because fender washers are typically pretty thin, and if you can get away with a bigger washer, try to do that. We were able to put that over the bolt, and it had a little bit more space between it and the body, so we're able to get a little bit heavier weld. So we used a little bit heavier washer and the same size nut. And basically, after 10 or 15 minutes of working it back and forth using WD-40, getting it worked in, we're able to actually extract the rest of the nut. And you can see, or excuse me, the bolt. You can see these are pretty big bolts, and often what happens is, you know, the part just sticks out inside the frame, gets a bunch of rust on it, and you start to pull it out, and it pull all that rust into the nut, and you get it all gummed up. So anyway, so here the rest of this video will be us removing that bolt. You can see how we did it. All right, thanks. Alright, so here's actually our scenario. We've got our broken bolt. It's kind of hard to see, but it's up in here. So obviously not a ideal situation here for us to try to extract it, but you know, they're never ideal. Typically they're always going to be in places that are hard to get. So like I said, what we're going to do is we're going to put that washer over it. First we're going to clean it up. The key to this is making sure we get good penetration into the bolt and to the washer without getting over into the areas of the unibody. So what we're doing is we're using a fender washer that has a hole that is about a 1/16 to an 1/8 smaller in diameter than the actual bolt that we're welding to try to make sure we don't get over into the you know, we want as close to the outside of the bolt as possible, but not getting into the metal. So let's see how this goes. Alright, so now for the moment of truth. I know it's hard to see what we did up there, but you know, we made sure that washer was centered on the bolt still in the frame, welded it to the center of the bolt, and then we tacked our nut to the outside. The nut to the outside, we just put 3 small welds. Typically they'll hold up pretty easily. Unfortunately, with where it's at, we can't put a ratchet on it. We do have our gear wrench. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to work it back and forth to try to get that bolt out of there. So we're going to screw it out a little bit and then go in to try to let the rust clear out some. And then we're going to keep doing that back and forth just to try to get it to clean itself up as it goes. Luckily, it is moving. A lot of times with this, if it's really stuck, you might break that washer off, especially if you don't get good penetration down into the bolt. In those cases, you can just try it again or find another way to get it out. Whack yourself in the head. Now, one thing I probably should have mentioned is that you do want to let it cool down some. Doesn't need to be cooled all the way down. You don't want to do it when especially when it's red hot. You're just going to twist it off because that metal is still molten. So right now it's still hot, so the parts are still a little bit, probably bigger than what they normally are. And also I think helps to keep things loosened up whenever they're both still hot. See, just as I expected, we actually sheared it off, all the back and forth. However, the good news is we did get it out a little bit more. So we'll basically just repeat our process, and hopefully now that there's a little bit more of the bolt sticking out, we get a little bit better penetration on it. Alright, thanks for watching. As you know, we got the damn bolt out. It does take a while. Be kind of patient with it. Like I said, a lot of times this method does work. You just may have to do it a couple of times, as the weld will break off the bolt at times. We've had some cases where we've had to do it 2, 3, even up to 4 times. But a lot of times it's going to be better to do this and spend that time doing it than to try to cut out all that and rebuild it. Now that section, like I said, we've done it before, but this is obviously the more preferred method versus cutting out. Anyway, thank you for watching. If this video helped you, as always, a like or subscribe is appreciated, and you can visit us at taboocustoms.com if you have any questions or comments. Thanks.